He accidentally knocked over a little figurine on the table, and right after that, he heard a strange noise outside. Curious, he stepped out to check it out, but what he saw left him completely stunned. His best friend had passed away at the exact moment the figurine fell. Heartbroken, he attended the funeral, but as soon as he stepped out, a few kids started laughing at him. Because of his height, Finbar couldn't go anywhere without getting strange looks. Even when he went to the supermarket, he'd hear people whispering about him. Although Finbar had long grown accustomed to such mockery, it still stung a little deep down. Beyond the obvious taunts, his short stature had indeed caused him quite a bit of trouble. Maybe he was just tired of the constant judgment from others. So when his lawyer told him that his friend had left him an old train station in a remote area, Finbar didn't hesitate to move there. The place was quiet, surrounded by greenery, with a long stretch of train tracks cutting through the woods. The house was in terrible shape. No electricity or water, but Finbar felt like it was the perfect place for him. It was far from the chaos of the world and brought peace to his heart. A small sofa was enough for him to stretch out on, and for the first time in a long while he slept soundly. The next morning, he was woken up by the sound of a phone ringing. When he stepped outside, he saw a diner car parked at the door. As someone approached, Joe popped his head out, and when he saw Finbar, there was a brief moment of surprise in his eyes, just like anyone else would have. But it was quick, and then Joe warmly introduced him to his signature coffee. Finbar ordered a cup, and that's how they met. Later, when Finbar went to the supermarket, he was nearly hit by a swerving car. The driver was on the phone and didn't see him. As the car came towards him, Finbar had no choice but to leap into the bushes. At the same time, Olivia got out of the car to check and rushed over to help him up. But in her hurry, she slipped and fell too. Finbar, though a little embarrassed by the situation, wasn't angry. To make up for it, Olivia offered to give him a ride. But Finbar didn't trust her driving skills and politely declined. As soon as he stepped into the supermarket, the owner started eyeing him curiously. While Finbar was picking out some items, the owner even pulled out a camera and snapped a picture of him. Finbar didn't say anything. On his way home, carrying bags of things, he ran into Olivia again. This time, she accidentally spilled her coffee. As Finbar watched, the car wobbled again, heading straight for him. To avoid getting hit, he jumped into the bushes once again. Olivia couldn't understand why these things kept happening. Panicking, she ran over to him. No matter how much Olivia tried to explain, Finbar felt like she was doing it on purpose. When she offered him a ride again, he turned her down once more. He had moved here for the peace and quiet, to enjoy his time alone. He loved walking along the train tracks, with no noisy people around, just nature as his company. But somewhere along the way, a little girl had started following him. She was innocent and didn't know any better, thinking Finbar was her age. When he turned around, she was so shocked by his face, one that didn't match his small stature, that she immediately ran off. Finbar just gave a helpless smile. He'd gotten so used to the judgment, he wasn't going to let a little girl's curiosity bother him. But that evening, someone knocked on his door. Finbar was surprised. He couldn't figure out who would come looking for him and thought the knocking might just be his imagination. When he opened the door, it was Olivia standing there. That comment broke the silence between them. Olivia, also curious, asked why Finbar had moved to such a remote place. It was then that Finbar realized everyone has their own struggles. His was just too obvious, something people could easily see. Olivia's struggles, on the other hand, were buried deep inside her, like a thorn that couldn't be removed, constantly tormenting her. Finbar didn't say any comforting words because he knew that, when facing such tragedy, nothing anyone says would help. Maybe it was because he too had lost a close friend that he could understand Olivia's feelings more deeply. Olivia stayed at Finbar's place for the night. The simple room only had one couch, so Finbar had to sleep in the bathtub. After Olivia left, Finbar took a walk around the town's library. But when he stepped out with a book in hand, he startled the librarian. Although the librarian didn't mean any harm, the fact that she was startled still hurt Finbar's pride. Thankfully, he had grown used to it, so he didn't show any signs of discomfort on his face. However, the process of borrowing books was a bit of a hassle. He needed to get a library card. Just then, a voice came from behind him. Finbar once again turned down Olivia's kindness. He didn't want to have unnecessary contact with anyone. But when he returned home, he found the book he wanted to borrow right at his doorstep. It was obvious who had placed it there. Although Finbar wanted to isolate himself, Joe repeatedly found his way into his world. Their interactions weren't frequent, but Joe understood Finbar's inner struggles. So, whenever a customer mocked Finbar, Joe would tell them to shut up. Compared to those hostile strangers, Joe was clearly a kind person. To many, Finbar was like a monkey in a zoo, being watched simply because he was different. But Joe understood the pain Finbar carried inside. He could even imagine how much malice Finbar must have faced over the years. Finbar had developed a skill of ignoring hostility. He liked sitting alone in front of the tracks, reading his book, while Joe always made an effort to approach him. Finbar didn't talk much and Joe wasn't into reading, but he could spend an hour or two with Finbar, just sitting there. No matter what topic Joe brought up, Finbar wasn't interested. Yet Joe kept following him around. Just then, Olivia happened to come out of the supermarket. Joe suggested they go for a picnic, and Finbar couldn't refuse his enthusiasm, so he reluctantly agreed. Joe took charge of cooking, while Finbar and Olivia sat under the shade waiting. But just as Joe brought the steak out, he received a call from his father. His father had been bedridden for years, and when he called, Joe had to leave immediately. So Joe hurriedly drove off with the food cart, leaving Finbar and Olivia behind. From then on, the three lonely souls became an oddly wonderful trio. They'd walk aimlessly along the train tracks, not really knowing what scenery lay ahead. But time spent with friends always had a way of feeling just right. When they got tired, they'd plop down on the ground. Finbar would pull out some beef jerky and share it with the others. They'd chat about everything and nothing at all. Finbar once shared that his biggest dream was to make a documentary about trains. Back when his best friend was still around, the two of them used to attend a train documentary club. Members would share the footage they'd captured and talk about their filming experiences. Finbar always wanted to shoot one of his own, but he didn't have a camera, and he didn't know how to drive. It was a lingering regret he carried. Sometimes they'd just sit and chat in front of Finbar's place. But when Olivia saw kids playing soccer near Joe's food truck, she couldn't help but think of her own son. A wave of sadness would wash over her, sudden and overwhelming. Not wanting anyone to notice something was wrong, she hurriedly left. Finbar's always been sensitive and observant, so of course he could tell Olivia wasn't in the best mood. But he's never been one to talk much. With help from Joe and Olivia, he managed to film his very first train documentary. It wasn't perfect, but he genuinely liked it. The first person they wanted to share it with was Olivia, especially since the camera Finbar used was a gift from her. So, without wasting any time, they showed up at her place. Olivia had never let anyone into her little cabin before, but for some reason, she didn't seem to mind Finbar and Joe being there. Once they stepped inside, they realized it wasn't just a cabin. It was actually a painting studio. Joe, being the chef, naturally handled all the cooking, while Finbar and Olivia just relaxed by the pool, waiting to be fed. As they sat there chatting, Olivia mentioned that the house was originally bought by her ex-husband as a vacation home. Funny how life works out. Now it had become her personal escape from reality. She asked Finbar again why he came here, and this time he even cracked a joke. Finbar still wasn't ready to open up completely, but the fact that he was willing to joke around a little, that was already a big step for him. As night fell, for the first time, Finbar finally opened up in front of them.
Have you ever been in love, Finn?
Yeah.
What happened?
I was young and really angry.
About what?
I guess being a dwarf.